Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you so much for joining us for another segment of Health Professional Radio. We're going to be speaking with Dr. Owen Garrick in this segment. He's joining us here from CVS to talk about diversity in clinical trials. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Dr. Owen Garrick. Thank you for taking the time this evening.
Neil, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, tell us a bit about yourself and your role at CVS.
Sure. I am the Chief Medical Officer for Clinical Trial Services at CVS Health. In that role, I oversee medical affairs, quality, which includes patient safety and data integrity, and I'm also the executive sponsor for our equity and diversity in clinical trials effort. I've been in the clinical trials business for almost 20 years now.
Now, I do understand that CVS Health launched clinical trial services about the middle of last year, I do believe, aiming to expand clinical trial participation in previously underserved demographics. It's my understanding also that a CVS retail location isn't more than 10 miles from the majority of the American population. As you said, you're the Chief Medical Officer of CVS Health Clinical Trial Services. Tell us about some of the issues with diversity and health equity in the current model of clinical trials.
The basic idea when you look at clinical trials is that you study a small population and you extrapolate or feel that those results from studying that small population apply to the larger group, say all of Americans that might take a vaccine. So for that to be accurate and valid, you really do have to have a good representative sample in that small group. So historically what has happened is that minority populations have not participated in research, so you can't truly tell if the results from a study where a certain group has not participated, the results actually apply to them. Now, where that's relevant is that some minority populations have differential responses to the same drug therapy. So you give the same or different groups of people the same drug, they have a different response, meaning that the drug may not be as effective. And some of those causes are partly environmental and some are genetic or biology. So when we think about clinical trials, historically the standard model lacks that diversity. It also tends to lack geographically convenient sites, so you often have to go to large academic medical centers. So all of this tends to hinder study participation.
So how would decentralization of clinical trials address that issue?
Great question. You would, in essence, move the trials from academic medical centers in hard-to-reach places to the community. As you mentioned at the top of the conversation, CVS, we have locations that are 10 minutes away from 85% of the population. So when you can conduct clinical trials within the community, it is much easier for individuals to participate. And since they are in the community and you have and you remove some of the access issues, you have the ability for a broader group or more representative group of patients to participate in research, and thus you counter that issue of historically historical underrepresentation.
In your opinion and your experience, is decentralization of any trial ideal, or are there some trials that still require one location with many people coming to that location or one type of population?
Yeah, I think that the real issue is to what degree can you safely, frankly, comfortably conduct certain procedures and activities within a location. So if you remember many, many years ago, you would do hip surgery and knee surgeries only within hospitals. Now you're doing those routinely in ambulatory surgery centers. And we see that when we expect that a similar thing is going to happen in clinical trials. You'll initially have lower acuity and lower risk studies happening in the community. And as you get more comfortable, and frankly, the providers in those decentralized community-based locations have the ability to do more procedures, you'll see many more studies happening in the community.
What types of data does CVS Health collect, and how does it leverage that data to improve upon clinical trial diversity?
Well, at CVS Health, we have over 100 million patients that we engage with in many ways, in our pharmacies, as part of members in terms of Aetna health insurance, in our Minute Clinics and health hubs. And we also have approximately 300,000 colleagues, including more than 40,000 physicians and pharmacists and nurses and PAs and nurse practitioners. So you have just this wide variety of data that we can leverage to support our capability to conduct decentralized clinical trials.
CVS Health Clinical Trial Services uses a community-centric model, as you talked about. How can CVS Health locations like Minute Clinics and health hubs be utilized to increase diversity in clinical trials?
Well, one of the beauties, as I mentioned before, and you commented, that our locations are located next to a large part of the population. In addition, more than 40% of the U.S. vulnerable population live within a 5-mile radius of a CVS pharmacy. So not only are we capturing large sections of America, we're also capturing a very diverse and, frankly, under-resourced segment of America. So they have the access to easily or readily come into our locations from, in the community. We also have the ability to go in-home through home research nursing, and you can also participate in our research studies through, virtually, through digital and virtual options. So we really do think through how do we give the patient the access that, the type of access they want. So within these very convenient, diverse locations, in your home if you're comfortable with that, and also participating virtually.
Other than being on shows such as this one, what is CVS doing to get the word out, to educate communities about this access that they have?
We're looking to partner, and we are partnering with community-based organizations, and we have what we call a diversity partner network, where we realize and acknowledge that CVS is a trusted voice within the community, and it's not the only trusted voice. So identifying community organizations and, frankly, trusted individuals within the markets where we're conducting research, we partner with them to create really initially just awareness about what a clinical trial is, and then secondly, awareness about specific opportunities. So a big part of it is education, really building the the framework to eventually, and when people are comfortable, participate in clinical trials, but leveraging those trusted voices, trusted partners within the community to deliver these very important messages.
What's next for CVS Health Clinical Trial Services?
Well, we're going to continue to build upon our work within the community. So as I mentioned, growing from our current group of sites, expanding that throughout our broader U.S. footprint to bring even more studies to the communities that we treat.
Doctor, I appreciate your time this evening. Give us a website where our listeners can learn more.
Sure. You can go and find a wealth of information at cvsclinicaltrials.com.
Dr. Garrick, thank you so much for joining us here on Health Professional Radio. Hopefully we'll speak again.
Neil, thank you.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Dr. Owen Garrick. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe and listen in and download at Anchor, Spotify, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel on youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.